appreciate us gathering in the holiday season. Thank you, everyone. I'm just doing a quick scan of the room. We have a couple of people that are participating in the Al here today. And so we're looking at Sarah to our main platform. One person carving that. Thank you, everyone. There's one mic for this room. I was going to be here in this corner if you need to move it. That. But how we have integrated microphones, and I think I mentioned that on TV, they are very sensitive. So just keep that in mind as the members of the public who are joining us virtually will have a pretty good ear on the conversations that are happening in the room. We're also using the Google Meet platform for our hybrid in-person electronic meetings today. I would like to note that Todd Stottlemyre is participating remotely, and the meeting minutes will reflect that he's requested to participate electronically in accordance with the board policy on electronic meeting participation. And Billy, can you please just confirm that Todd has dialed in? Someone please just give me a thumbs up on that.
Yes, I'm here.
So that we're recording all the votes accurately. After each vote, we are going to conduct a roll call vote for members who are participating electronically. So similar to our last meeting, the body here will vote on the item and then roll call. For those who are joining us remotely, there are some icons on your screen. One to mute your speakers. I would urge all of our individuals who are joining us virtually to please mute your speakers. Captions can be helpful if there's any audio challenges. Please use that. But again, keep yourself on mute to avoid background noise and feedback. Today we were welcoming Secretary Fran Bradford, and thank you for coming. I'm going to be part of this. This will be your first meeting, and we'll see what we have. So Andrea, would you please call? Don't get back
Here.
Secretary Bradford. Ben Davenport.
Here.
Jim Dyke.
Here.
Speaker Philip Warren. Here. Secretary Warren. Secretary Flores. Haywood Phelan.
Here.
Leah Freeman.
Here.
Ava Hardy. Here. Doug Wanrina.
Here.
Delegate Muckler. Senator Beck.
Here.
Todd Stottlemyre.
Here.
Here.
Robin Sullivan.
Here.
Delegate Torian.
Here.
Pietra Gianni.
Here.
Marilyn West.
Here.
Joe Wilson. And Debbie Benton. Madam Chair, we have a quorum. Senator Powell. I apologize. Anyone else? Great, thank you. We just have to take our agenda and raise our minutes. They were prior to this meeting. Is there a motion to approve? Second.
Second.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 If there's not, please. Todd Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the members for being here today. I did want to take one moment before we get into the CAFA applications to say some news from this week and tell a little bit about what I've heard about the Go Virginia, encouraging regional collaboration. The governor and the General Assembly provided unprecedented resources for broadband expansion announced this week. And the governor was in several locations with multiple planning district commissions, localities across the Commonwealth to get a universal broadband. And over, we heard from business leaders, local government, state. They began to think about some of the ways they could go across these broad 15 county regions to get universal expansion because of the table that had been set on regional collaboration with Go Virginia. I wanted to share that and really say that the kudos to the table that's been set with providing that for things like universal broadband. And thank you for the governor and General Assembly for that support.
Living in Southwest Virginia, I can tell you why. It's just so meaningful. But before we get deep into our meeting, we have provided the public with a means to comment on our proceedings and writing. I think there's one or two people here who would like to make comments. Andrea, do you have anything you'd like to read, or is there anyone here who would want to make a statement?
I can say we have one person here, one person here that would like to read the statement. No other written comments.
Oh, thank you.
My turn?
It's your turn.
I thought I was going to be last. I thought it was going to be after. I think I was, I'm a little surprised, but I'm happy to step up. My name is Sandra Schneider. I'm the president and CEO of Security University. We're located in Herndon, Virginia, and I'm also the president of Security University Foundation, also located in Northern Virginia. I don't know if any of you have heard of us. We only do cybersecurity, 29,000 students in 22 years in Northern Virginia. Pretty exciting, right? I have a couple points I'd like to make. Our grant generates a 74% ROI, and it results in $3 million generated to state taxes. I don't know if you all can see it. So I'm going to get my points out of the way, and then I only have a couple of seconds to talk. We have a very unique experiential lab that we're trying to get funded that will allow the people who are certified. We deal with the adult workforce in cyber education. We want to certify them. That's great. Everybody wants to have them certified. But if we don't skill them up, if they don't have a way to get employed, they remain unemployed and they have to go back into another field. All the money and effort spent goes down the drain. We believe an experiential lab makes the biggest difference in the world. And we guarantee that when they finish with the lab process and the education process, they are employable without work on their resume. Very critical. Region 7 has 53,000 open cyber jobs. 53,000. Yesterday, as of yesterday, there was 16,000 Security Plus individuals and 15,000 CISSPs, and we have 53,000 open jobs with credential requirements. How are we going to fill that? The workforce doesn't do that. So ladies and gentlemen, the grant is going to provide $3 million in generated income, a unique lab. We're going to create a task force, a cyber task force that will review what industry needs and what we can provide and get us there so we can start to develop cyber individuals, because it builds mentors, it builds instructors, it builds cybersecurity careers for highly valued cyber professionals. We need something like this. We need it in the state, not just in Northern Virginia, but we can do it, we can provide it. It's cost effective, it's got an ROI of 24 months, and I'm going to sit down in about a minute. I just wanted to say that we're going to produce 1,500 1,080 credentials. All 350 people that will be educated will have between 2 and 6 courses over the course of 12 months that will provide them the highest level of cyber education, period. We're approved by the NSA. We just last week became reaccredited for another 10 years from 2032. I don't even know how to say those words anymore. We seek your support. Please reconsider and vote for this grant. It's so worth it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for coming and for presenting and giving us some additional information. And the work that you're doing is important. Absolutely right. You speak good example of the issues related to security. Thank you very much. Okay, Eric, why don't you give us the about what we're doing?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So that you can see the next item on your agenda is the approval of projects. And this round of overdue applications, we received 10 applications, including 9 per capita implementations and 1 regional ERR application. All of which are in front of you today as part of the package representing approximately 5
Everything up right now. The second house.
Please note that
So we haven't
in
missed anything.
package is one
It's not getting
project for which
edited
staff
for the second
needs
one.
feedback. Recommended further work or refinement of the regions,
They updated it.
and 1 that for which staff, based on technical review of the application and work with
These
feedback,
updates are.
are recommending to not approve the funding. When Sarah reviews each project, she will make note of these recommendations after the summary. I want to thank those that participated in the November work group to review these applications. The board members included Jim Dyke, Haywood Taylor, Leah Freemal, Doug Monterina, Robin Sullenberger, Thea Trigiani, Debbie Wynn, and then our subject matter experts were Conway Haskins with the Virginia Innovation Partnership Corporation, Carl Knobloch with our state Virginia District SBA, John Loftus on the sites projects with DEP, Debbie Melvin with DEP on their talent solutions, Mary Miller, grant director for Roman Blacksburg Technology
Who
Council,
complains that well?
Cass Radnick,
We can't hear
Deputy Secretary of Commerce and Trade, Nathan Sable, Manager of Gen Edge, Zell
Picking him
Stoltz,
up really.
Director of Entrepreneurial Program, GMU, Stephen Burson with VDAX, and Megan Welch with DEP. And I neglected to also mention that Delegate Bagby was another board member subject matter expert for his participation in that review. Now I'm going to go ask Sarah Dunnigan to review the details of each project. And the chair would like us to vote on each application type as a block, except for the project equal application from region 2, the cluster scale up investment strategy. We're going to pull this application from the block for a vote at the very end of the per capita applications to allow the chair and Mr. Fraley to abstain on that vote as they requested. So after each presentation type, the chair will call for that vote, and members may elect to pull any application you wish after the presentation for further discussion or vote on the block. I'll turn it over to Sarah. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you. Madam Chair, we understand from some of the folks joining us virtually that the audio is difficult, so I'd like to give my team just a minute to see if we can get something dialed in. And just remind folks that are joining us by phone, if they could please.
Best way to do it would be to just.
Okay, I'm going to keep talking so that we can be assured that. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Everything works perfectly during the draft.
There's you all that haven't worked with owls. So if you're on a Zoom call, if you're working with your owl, you have to actually look at the owl, not at one display. It's so weird. Just talking. They're seeing you.
So rewrite it all, remember the original. Yeah, we got to. So you can turn it over. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. Todd, I especially want to make sure that you've got a good connection that you hear us, okay?
Yeah, I can hear you. It sounds like there's some folks on the phone that probably just need to go on mute because that's where the feedback was coming. So thank you.
we'll try to get things dialed in. And I am using a microphone now, so I'm hoping that will improve the audio experience as well. Okay, to keep moving, we are going to review as a block the per capita applications. There are 9 proposals in front of you to take action on. 6 out of the 9 Go Virginia regions participated in this round. We've got 2 workforce development, 1 site development, 2 cluster scale up, 4 startup ecosystem requests in this stack. Total request for this block is 4.9 million, and total match is indicated here as 6.1 million, which includes $540,000 of local match. The first one I'd like to share with you today is coming to us from Region 2. This is the Regional Talent Strategy Implementation in the Workforce Development category. The goal is stated here. The partners are the Regional Workforce Board and the Roanoke Regional Partnership. This is a very interesting, I think, a novel collaboration, which we're really encouraged by. The activities will really focus on career awareness, career pathways, talent development, and also talent attraction. And I just think this is a time to pause and have this body recognize that talent attraction is really becoming an area of interest for many of the Go Virginia regions. We've talked about talent development, how we can improve alignment, but this idea of doing out-of-market recruitment for talent is one that seems to be emerging as a critical area of need. We are recommending that this project be deferred. I think it's got a lot of staff review and work group feedback, some opportunities to better define the sector strategy approach, and more consistent with Go Virginia target trade sector industries. There's very limited documented private industry support for this project. Not that we don't think it's there, but we think a little more time would give the applicant an opportunity to produce that. We also recommend that they consider incorporating a regional graduate retention strategy. There are a number of colleges and universities. There may be some low-hanging fruit that this collaboration could also work on. And then some questions about sustainability. The next project is Security University Foundation, a project called ACER. This again is the workforce strategy. We had a representative from Security University here today to address this group. They are requesting $1.75 million to engage and prepare 350 IT professionals for cyber career pathways through strengthening and expanding cyber education, training, and advocacy. The Accelerated Cyber Experiential Lab Residency Project, ACER, will expand participants' cyber knowledge for in-demand cyber careers in the region. There are a number of outcomes that are described here. The applicants expressed an interest to allow the curriculum developed to be shared through a Creative Commons licensing agreement. 350 students will be trained. That includes 50 new entrants into the cybersecurity field and upskilling 300 IT professionals to prepare them for a job in cybersecurity. The number of cyber training courses there are stated. Based on the work group discussion, we are recommending to not fund this project. There are a number of, we believe, fundamental Go Virginia program requirements that are lacking, and I'll just go through those briefly. The project lacks the required participation of 2 or more localities. The budget presented suggests that the Go Virginia funds will be used for training vouchers or scholarships, which this body has previously discussed as perhaps a not sustainable investment category. The match provided by Security University is program revenue, student paid tuition. The project does not demonstrate a positive ROI, and we use the standard template that we use for all Go Virginia projects. We looked at actually 60 new entrants. We included 10 veterans who would go through the program and be new to the labor market, and then the upskilling that was indicated at 290. George Mason University was unable to validate the inputs for the economic impact analysis that Region 7 prepared and poorly defined sustainability strategy. The next project is in site development infrastructure. Smith County EDA is requesting $600,000. The match is $300,000, including $150,000 in local match. This project will do a number of things, principally provide water and sewer line extensions to a site in Smith County and encourage and support the formation of a regional industrial facility authority, which is a cost revenue sharing model that Virginia has certainly supported in the past. 2,000 feet of water line extension, 1,600 feet of sewer line extension, the creation of the RIFA, and the project applicant indicates that the site could support new economic activity, companies that could create as many as 275 jobs. We consulted with the EDP. This site is very positively viewed. It's in a good position, highly marketable, and for that reason, we are recommending this project for approval. The next project on the list is Project Seed. This project involves Longwood University. The Real Estate Foundation is the applicant. They are requesting $674,000 in partnership with Hampton City College, and they are going to establish an innovation hub in downtown Farmville. Now, this is part of Region 3, and if you guys remember, we have the SOVA Innovation Hub in South Boston. This project is actually an extension and an expression of the strategic plan that they developed for regional entrepreneurship in Region 3. This hub will bolster business creation, innovation activities, workforce training. The proposed use of Go Virginia funds is to create a makerspace, a co-working space, and a business accelerator, and the facilities will be used as an education outreach center as well. The participating localities include the school systems of Cumberland County and Prince Edward County. There are outcomes as described. Staff recommends approval of this project with contingencies. These contingencies have been shared with the applicant, but includes that the total amount of funding in place is consistent with the Tobacco Commission, who's also a partner here. There's a gap in this project that includes a funding request they have to US EDA. We want to make sure that that funding is secured before moving forward. We'd like to have some conversations about their trade and sector focus, the creation of discrete project outcomes, and ongoing meaningful local participation in the effort. So that is the staff recommendation on that project. The next project is coming to us from Region 6. It's the Riot Accelerator project. This is the regional Internet of Things. We have funded other efforts in Region 6. This is as it reads, pre-accelerator program. They would like to launch 3 6-week pre-accelerator cohorts. Participating localities include the city of Fredericksburg, the counties of King George and Stafford. But in conversations with the applicant, we understand that they have an eye on really bringing some of this programming deeper into some of the more rural parts of Region 6 as well. The outcomes are listed there. Based on the work group discussion, application review, staff is recommending this project for approval. The next project is from Region 7, that's Northern Virginia. This is part of the Startup Ecosystem Strategy. George Mason University is the applicant, and they're requesting $193,751 to lead Region 7's Regional Entrepreneurship Initiative. For folks that are new to the board, the REI was a special grant type that allows each region to use up to $300,000 of their per capita allocation to do an in-depth strategy development and more detailed gap analysis of their startup ecosystem. And Region 7 has selected George Mason University to lead that charge. Participating localities include the counties of Fairfax and Loudoun. The outcomes are listed here. The plan itself, which we think will be very helpful to Northern Virginia. A lot of great players in that space that help to coordinate the overall effort. Develop a list of actionable strategies. And the idea behind the REI is that that plan would lead to Go Virginia implementation projects. And we've seen that happen in Region 3, in Region 1, for example. So it's really been an opportunity for those partners to kind of think deeply about what's happening in the startup space. Based on the work group discussion, we are recommending that project for approval. The next project is the Agricultural Innovation Center. The Advancement Foundation is requesting $550,000 to create a multi-use facility featuring a business incubator, classrooms, agriculture, food tech lab, small-scale manufacturing space, a processing and product development space, and a commercial kitchen to expand agricultural and tech industries. The participating localities include the counties of Augusta and Rockbridge and the cities of Buena Vista and Lexington. There are a number of outcomes that are listed here. Based on the work group discussion and application review, staff is recommending this project for approval. I would like to say this project is an extension of a planning grant that Go Virginia funded to create an Ag Innovation Center. And also a project that had been led by James Madison University, which was around commercial hemp applications. This project really manifests the recommendations in both of those studies, and for a whole lot of those reasons, we're recommending this one for approval. The next project is also in the cluster scale-up and also in the agricultural industry space, which is a priority for Region 1, who has submitted this application. The Appalachian Sustainable Development is the applicant, organization called ASD. They're requesting $212,200. This is a repeat submission. The last one was also a repeat submission. What to do is create critical infrastructure in the food supply chain to support the growth of small-scale farmers in the region and reduce the importation of agricultural products. The applicant intends to engage institutional buyers, such as school divisions, and the resubmitted application did include a letter of support from the Department of Education, as well as a number of school divisions who expressed an interest in and commitment to buy the products that are going to be have some value-added production done and distributed. This Go Virginia investment will include some equipment and upfitting of the space necessary to do that value-added production, expanding processing capabilities, which will result in increased revenue for the participating businesses, which we felt was well articulated in the resubmitted application. Staff is recommending this project for approval.
Okay, thank you, Tara and Eric. Is there any further discussion of any of these per capita grant applications? Eric?
Madam Chair, Pia Gianni did ask that we pull project C on page 13 of the packet, so she could recuse herself from that vote. So just, you really won't be able to go ahead.
That's fine, and I forgot to ask you, since we're recommending deferral of the first project, my staff that put that application in, I should abstain from that vote as well. If you wanted to pull that.
Okay, so just to restate, we are going to pull the talent strategy implementation project. We're going to pull project C.
And we'll just vote on those separately.
Okay.
Sure. That's me.
It's obvious, I think, from the staff report that the Security University project really doesn't fit in with our own criteria. But it seems to me it's worthwhile, and there may be another state program, for example, women in minority business, or some other, and I'd like to ask that the secretary next to me find out if that is indeed.
We'll be happy to look at tonight.
Thank you.
That's a great idea. And let me remind you, we talked about this last time too. A good example is the Appalachian project, which we deferred previously, came back and now fully supported. Just because we don't approve something or we defer something that can't come back. But that's an even better, perhaps, alternative. Okay, so we have a motion to accept the staff and work group recommendations for these 6 applications.
So motion.
For a second, further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, sign.
Voting in mass, Chair Nancy.
We are.
Could you please note that I'm abstaining from the vote on the project anyway. If you're taking that up yet.
We've already taken that out of the
Because
package,
it
Mr. Freeman.
involves Virginia
We'll do that
Tech.
later.
Yep, we've got that one as a separate item as well.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Let's do the other two. So the first one is the talent workforce strategy, the first one in your pocket. We have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second, question. Please let the minutes reflect that on. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Then for C.
Pardon me, we should,
Roll call for
Each time.
Mr. Stottlemyre.
Aye.
Yeah.
And now for project C, we have a motion for approval.
I would move project C be approved.
A second.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And we just need to make a note that
I'm abstaining for that.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
And
And Todd?
Aye.
We get straight from Haywood is abstaining.
We're gonna put that.
that's the next project in the packet.
Sorry.
Okay, the next is Project Equal Plus. It's in your packet on page 25. The Virginia Tech Research Center, wholly owned subsidiary of the Virginia Tech Foundation, in partnership with the City of Roanoke, Montgomery County, and Johnson & Johnson J Labs, is requesting $599,436 to support a three-pronged approach to build the region's health and life science cluster, which has been identified by Region 2 as a high priority industry sector. The goal here is to do a couple of things. One, to build out a pilot lab shared facility in Blacksburg. The second is to launch the J Labs Accelerator program, which to my understanding would be a first in Virginia. It's a highly recognized program, and we were really excited to see that as a part of the application. And finally, to conduct site design and engineering work for an additional lab facility, much larger, and one that we believe would help to address the severe shortage of wet lab space and other laboratory space, really across the Commonwealth, but certainly it's been recognized and documented in the Roanoke area. The outcomes are listed there. The number of companies served, for example, the number of jobs created, the number of companies expanded or scaled up, and in addition, the applicant indicated that the supported businesses would invest as much as $7.5 million in those businesses. Staff is recommending this project for approval.
And I should note this is the partnership that includes Carillion, and which is one reason why I will abstain. And Mr. Freeland and Mr. Do you think you should abstain?
Well, in fact, I'm on Region 2. I'm no longer on the Corporate Research Center board,
Okay.
so I think I'm clear.
Yeah, good. All right. We need a vote. So, we have a motion for approval.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
In discussion. This is a very exciting project for us.
Yes, we're back. Ms. Agee and Mr. Freeland under this exchange.
All those in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? Thank you very much.
Aye.
And it's aye.
Aye.
We received one economic resilience and recovery project application. One proposal was submitted. It's in the startup ecosystem space. The request is coming to us from Region 4, and they would like to grow the pipeline, expanding early stage entrepreneurial support. The goals are listed here, along with the number of companies that would be assisted and entrepreneur served. The applicant is Startup Virginia, who's an applicant we are familiar with. They have been very, very responsive to the needs of founders and early stage businesses, in particular during the pandemic. They would like to expand the service delivery that they are engaged in right now, enhance their incubator services, and further develop 2 programs for the earliest stage companies, including an entrepreneur certificate course, which they proposed to white label, and I think has some really exciting opportunities for scale and replication. Staff is recommending this project for approval.
Vote is needed. May I have a motion to accept staff and workers' recommendations? Second, any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, motion passes. Okay, we've done a lot of hard work here. Now the fun begins, actually. This is something based on the feedback that we've had from all of you. Sort of how are we doing? How's it working? So we prove these things and what happens afterwards. Today we would do a panel discussion, and to bring the panel up there. I'm going to introduce some special guests to you who are part of your panel. And they're going to be sharing their projects that have been funded through Go Virginia. Let's have a little quiet conversation with Doug Smith prior to this. And, you know, let me setting him quietly. But we owe a huge debt to Debbie. Go Virginia was actually the brainchild of Smith, and he has forwarded this to the panel. And the legacy that it's creating is phenomenal. And I don't think there's any other thing in Virginia that has created the regional partnerships, sometimes willing, sometimes like, do I really have to work with those people? And it's really working. It's phenomenal. And Doug was talking about, I hope he'll say it out loud, but it isn't just the people that come together in the project that's funded. It legitimizes a lot of the effort, and others want to come on, right? And want to really be participating in this really fantastic program. So Debbie, that's a Merry Christmas present. But in all seriousness, I can't think of anything that I would rather be associated with the Go Virginia. It's just a phenomenal success. So thank you, Sarah, for pulling together this panel. The bios are in there. I'm going to ask them each to briefly introduce themselves, and Sarah to facilitate the panel discussion.
Want to start on the line?
Sure, I'm Doug Smith with the Hampton Roads Alliance. We're the region's economic development organization. We gave us this grant. We're representing 11 communities and 70 businesses, and now we're 14 communities and 40%.
I'm Jeff Gallagher. I'm serving as really the quarterback for Region 4 as we pull together the Advanced Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Cluster Coalition.
Hi, I'm Bill Donahue with Gen Edge Alliance. We're the state's existing industry economic development unit that does that work through consulting. We're going to talk to you about a novel program where we're retooling Virginia industries in the PPE, medical device, and other critical industry sector. And talk to you also about how we're helping some companies pivot from a traditional carbon-based manufacturing economy into green energy technologies. Please be here today.
And Sarah, we might ask that each of you, if you don't mind sharing the mic, because it is a little hard to hear in this one.
I'm just going to try to talk really loud. Okay. I have provided some questions for these gentlemen, so we're going to try to create a little bit of structure, but I do want to leave some time for questions. So we'll just go ahead and get started, and I've asked each of them to just give us their elevator pitch for the project, and specifically, how did this project support one or more elements of your region's growth and diversification plan? Tell us who the partners are involved and really what you're trying to accomplish.
Good. And thanks, Sarah. I'll start us off. And I'm going to give you the bottom line up front. There's a couple of us were talking in the back. A year and a half ago, when we got this grant, my team couldn't tell you the difference between a ceiling fan and a wind turbine. Right? And fast forward 18 months, we are partnering with, having conversations, partnering with organizations in New Orleans, in North Carolina. We have hosted conversations with the executive director of the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management and Senator Kane in our new offshore wind landing that has 20 companies, offshore wind companies that are members. I believe that we, the Port of Virginia, the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, Virginia Maritime Association, and others are speaking with one voice, which is tremendous when you're trying to bring a new industry into the area from Europe. They don't really even know who Virginia is, much less Hampton Roads. If you've got multiple people giving multiple messages, that's a problem. I think we coordinated that very well. We're coordinated very well, frankly, with Dominion Energy, who's obviously doing the project off of our coast, but also Avenue Renewables, who's doing the project off of Kitty Hawk. So it is, to say that your money has made a tremendous difference to us, our organization in this industry would be, I couldn't overstate that. In terms of how did it fit with our plans, if you think about March of 20, we were all sent home, thinking we were going home for 90 days. It quickly became apparent it was going to be longer than that. We had about 10 of my peers that run the different regional organizations in the region were on the phone every other day during the early days of that pandemic. And Jim Spoor got on a call one time and said, hey, Go Virginia is getting ready to shift some money around. There's going to be some emergency economic recovery funds available. What do we need them for? And so we quickly jumped in on offshore wind. I'll explain why a little bit later. But the point, there were a couple of reasons. One, clean energy was an important part of our regional diversification plan. The new plan that you're going to get from Jim Spoor is going to talk about that in even more detail this round. We had just lost, argue whether it's good or bad. We can do that on another forum. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which was going to be a really important source of energy for our region, wasn't going to happen. So we realized that we were going to have to double down on renewable energy, and this grant afforded us that opportunity. And so in terms of our collaborators, the good news was we were already collaborating, figuring out what to do. And so now those groups that I talked to you about, I probably left out the Department of Energy. One of the criticisms we got as we were getting to this phase, this approval phase that you all just went through, there were a lot of folks in the administration that we were hearing saying, hey, you're getting out of your space. What are you doing here? So we were really clear to talk to the Department of Energy, to talk to Commerce, talk to PEDP to make sure we were focusing on the supply chain, not trying to get into anybody else's space. But this money has made a huge difference for us. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. In the Richmond Petersburg area right now, something really extraordinary is happening. It started with research coming out of the VCU School of Engineering and supported very strongly by the Gates Foundation. It was doubled down by a massive, almost $750 million contract from the federal government, BARDA, to a startup company out of VCU, to an international company out of California, and one of the great nonprofits of the hospital world, Civica RX, to manufacture drugs, essential medicines that we need in the United States, and bring it away in a way that reduces the cost, reduces the time, uses advanced manufacturing techniques which will allow us to compete with the world and bring manufacturing back, reduces the environmental impact of what is known to be a pretty environmentally intensive industry. And all this, the leading technology, the leading talent creation, and the tip of the spear of the transformation of the manufacturing technology is happening in the Richmond Petersburg region. Some of us knew this was happening and applied for an enhanced capacity building grant. College of Engineering did, VCU's. And for a year, again, at the depths of COVID, many people in this region came together, academia, private sector, the economic developments, EDP, et cetera. And we formed work groups and we laid out a plan. A year later, last March, it yielded a 178-page final report with very specific recommendations on what would make a big difference. And then we took that and applied for an implementation grant in Virginia, Region 4. We won that about 2 months ago to focus on 4 or 5 of the top priorities. You may have heard, but about 3 months ago, a large federal plane flew over his head and said, we have $1 billion Economic Development Administration grant called Build Back Better Regional Challenge. for regions across the United States who have a transformative technology that can make a big impact on the region and have a strategic plan for where this should go and have assembled a team of people to put it together. Well, it's as if they had listened to our meetings for the previous 15 months. And so the coalition got itself together with building on the steps that Go Virginia had done first. We put in for that grant. And we found out on Monday that out of the 521 regions around the United States, we were selected as one of the 60 finalists. That'll give us $500,000 by Friday. And by March 15th, we have to put in the application, the phase 2 application. They'll take the 60 finalists down to 30 winning regions and technologies, and the awards will be from $30 to $100 million to support significant infrastructure, workforce, other projects. There would be no way in the world that this regional cluster would be in a position to compete nationally against the best of the best if it weren't for the support of Go Virginia. It allowed us to weave together a team spanning 2 different planning districts, 2 different regional EDOs, private industry, universities, BSU, ECU, really closely working together in a way that otherwise would not have been done. 2 last points of this, and then one is that this just happened to be at the intersection of the priorities for Region 4, life science, advanced manufacturing, and logistics. Happened to right at that sweet spot. It could be an accident, or it could be what projects are all picked up, and just the people that have come together to make it happen. Terrific. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to talk to you first about the project that developed in the midst of the emergence of the COVID-19 pandemic. We were actually called by Secretary Ball to assist the Virginia Department of Emergency Management in trying to patch together a supply chain in Virginia to help us, as we found that we lacked critical PPE supplies to be able to provide to our patients, our medical service providers, our emergency responders. Virginia was sorely behind, as is most of the country, in its ability to be self-sufficient in that area. So as we worked on that team, at the same time, we had an opportunity to work with Senator Kane's office and said, Senator, we're beginning to work on opportunities where we have companies that want to make a difference. Could you help? And in the CARES Act, a set aside for the NEP program, Jen is just one of 51 centers that participate in that through the National Institute of Standards and Technology was made. That $850,000 that was made available to us became a keystone. And when we spoke with our friends at Go Virginia, the Department of DHCD, they said, we'd be interested in what we could do there. Well, at the same time, we also found that our supply chains for other things were drying up. Shouldn't be a surprise. If people are wondering where we might be able to find some business for manufactured goods, the fact is we have a $1 trillion annual trade deficit in manufactured goods. $1 trillion. By the way, if we didn't have that trade deficit, I would contend that our federal deficit would be a quarter of the size that it is today. So we found out about this program called ERR, and they said, oh, by the way, for you to get that kind of funding, you've got to build a team across the entire Commonwealth. I said, well, how do you do that? Who do I talk to who can tell us how to put that together? Oh, that's never been done. I said, what do you mean it's never been done? Well, what the heck? Let's give it a shot. Working with Shannon Blevins and her team in Go Virginia Region 1, who volunteered to be the lead region. we rapidly worked with every region across the state and found that between either advanced manufacturing or healthcare, there was a focus in every region that tied to this particular opportunity. Not only were they willing to support it, they were also willing to provide oversight and administration. So we stood up this, it's about $4.2 million program, including company match. They willingly work on a supervisory committee that we established that meets every month, that monitors the program and approves the funding that's provided to help these companies make a difference. So, when it came to, putting that value proposition together, currently we have successfully worked now with 20 companies who are in either PPE or infectious disease control businesses here in Virginia, many with some very novel products. For instance, we have one company that is located in Region 4 who's developing a new material for masks. I'm not sure if everybody is aware, but that mask, that doesn't stop the coronavirus. We need mask material that will stop that tiny little bug from penetrating what we believe is a very good protective device. And I'm not recommending that you don't wear that, because quite frankly, it's generally conveyed with water vapor. So we're really happy that these companies have weathered the storm. We had one, Blue Wolf, located in Southwest Virginia, who landed a major contract with Lowe's. They had the primary contract with Lowe's, and they loaded their capacity by our helping them put together an appropriate value proposition, marketing plan, and supply chain that allowed them to fulfill Lowe's needs at the retail level. So that project is a lot of fun. Now we're moving into other critical supply chains where we have similar challenges and needs. Right now, 36 companies are engaged in making new products here in the United States that otherwise would be coming from offshore. That's exciting. That's very exciting for me. Having lived in Southern Virginia, seeing the impact that occurred from NAFTA, thousands of jobs being lost, I believe we're beginning to make the turn. The second project here I'm representing, I'm going to be very brief here, is an exciting one around energy storage in Southwest Virginia. You may know that that area of the country has the ability to rapidly become the energy center of at least the eastern United States. Lithium deposits, which have been identified in western North Carolina, have been sold out to Tesla. Sold out. $3 billion transaction, okay? And there's plenty more lithium to find. Well, there's companies who were participating very well in the carbon-based economy who also want to make a difference. They want to pivot to a new business. They want to participate in the new economy. They want to bring those jobs here. This program, which is led by a partnership including, I take the glasses off, UVA Weldon Cooper Center, Appalachian Voices, Ascent Virginia, and the Economic Growth Institute out of Michigan State. I do contend we probably could have done that here, but I'm not going to go quibble on that. We've got 4 companies in the pilot stage of going into the electrical energy business. Whether it's the distribution, whether it's the packaging associated with lithium battery storage, whether it's the transfer technology to go from DC to AC. These companies, West River Conveyors, Simmons Equipment, Hemco, and Lawrence Brothers, they're providing an opportunity for us to figure out how to do this, how to do it right, and then how to take it to other companies in the Commonwealth so that they can succeed just like they are. Thank you.
Thank you. My folks did such a good job introducing their projects. I don't have many questions left. Now, I want to leave some space for the board members here as well. But there is something I'd like to explore a little bit, maybe with all three. And that's around, how do you determine the economic impact, the potential of that project? And just briefly, how do you articulate that with key stakeholders, your partners, and how is this connected to, other regional economic development efforts? And I'll start with you, Doug, because you are with the regional economic development.
Yes, the timing was really fortunate for us, and we were trying to get our arms around this industry, right? What was offshore wind? And so we had frankly just engaged. When I say we, it's oftentimes many organizations that were involved. So we had probably 4 or 5 organizations that funded an economic impact study. You would hear lots of numbers about what offshore wind was going to do to Virginia. And it was hard to source some of those numbers. We brought Mangum in and said, do an analysis of this industry and tell us what the potential is. And what came back was 2 or 3 things. One, just the Dominion project we call CVAL. That project during construction would generate about 900 jobs, but then during the operations and maintenance, the ongoing phase would generate about 1,100 jobs. The industry, and remember in those days, it was really unclear if we were going to see sort of a line of sight of lots of projects getting approved. Things were real slow in approving these projects. And what the study said is if we can get a pace of development up and down the East Coast, then it's reasonable to think that Hampton Roads could see between 5,000 and 6,000 jobs. I can tell you, there's not much happening in Hampton Roads that's going to generate 5,000 or 6,000 jobs in the near term. So that's how we sort of did it, got our arms around the scale, if you will. And then in terms of sort of how does it connect to other economic development efforts, if you think about us, and we had this, and Doug was a big part of this sort of aha moment 3, 4, 5 years ago. We spent a lot of time talking about diversifying away from our maritime industrial base, right? And then when we realized that that's who we are, that's our DNA. Yes, we want to diversify in addition to that. But so if you think about us, the port and the Navy and ship repair and shipbuilding, offshore wind gives us that 4th leg of that maritime stool. And so we believe that not all, but a lot of the jobs can transfer. If you've got a welding skill, if you've got certain trade skills, it's not a reasonable thing that you could be in offshore wind or shipbuilding or frankly involved in the nearly $5 billion worth of transportation projects that we have underway. I don't get in a room like this that I don't want to say. There was a narrative 10 years ago that I think was fair that Hampton Roads didn't collaborate. That is an old narrative. And that $5 billion project that we candidly predominantly self-funded, the General Assembly was gracious enough to give us the ability to tax ourselves, now build ourselves. And we, in 17 localities, came behind $5 billion worth of priorities, and those projects are underway. And so if you look at now how we're going to grow this offshore wind and how it lines up with this maritime industrial base, we think it fits really well in terms of reinforcing what we are. We've been building great, complicated ships for a lot of years, and there's no reason we can't stand up this industry. And that's the last thing I'll say on this question. I need you to understand that this is not a project. This is an industry that does not exist, and it's very different. While you've got wind farms on land, it's very different putting one 27 miles off the coast in open seas that is taller than the tallest building you've got in Virginia Beach. So the complexity and the scale of this thing, and all that expertise today is in Europe. None of that expertise is in the United States. So we are trying to identify the adjacent industries that can get in that space that will allow Hampton Roads to become the supply chain hub for the East Coast for what's going to become an $80 to $100 billion investment off our coast. And we have lots of advantages. We have that workforce. We have unimpeded access out to the ocean. We have good land, good available land. Please understand, it does not happen automatically. The competition for this is fierce. I didn't know you were sitting here next to the guy that got our grant. So we were trying to get that Build Back Better grant as well. Now, Connecticut got one. Connecticut got one on offshore wind. When you look at all the things that Connecticut wants to do, and now they're going to get that order back to $30 to $100 million to do it. They're trying to do all the things we want to do. They're trying to get all the businesses that we want to get. So this is a fierce competition. Thank you.
Jeff, could you answer the same question?
Sure. Doug, what you all are doing is so awesome. And, you know, at that level of competition, it usually could go to you or us. So keep up the fantastic work. I'll answer the question, the sort of the micro level, we can go way out to the satellite level. At the micro level, these are high-paying jobs in a high-tech, high-growth industry. In pharmaceutical manufacturing broadly, we have statistics that show that 75% of the jobs that come to a manufacturing plant are for high school plus training folks, don't require an advanced degree. It's one of the reasons why part of our implementation grant and some of the other things we've heard about is this superb effort by the EDP and the Community College Workforce Alliance of John Toller, Jay Sarge, and the private companies and VGR to create a workforce technician training, advanced manufacturing technician certificate program, which will meet the hockey puck when the companies need it. And in 16 months, give them the technicians they need. That is underway right now. And those organizations really snapped into action. It's a great display of collaboration and the resources already in the Commonwealth. At the other end, they're going to be the under 25% of those jobs are going to be masters and PhD level creators and innovators, and they're going to be creating. They're going to be not only working with those plants, they're going to be up here in Richmond and elsewhere, and they're going to be creating the processes and reinventing and adapting the machinery that's been used in old processes and not going to be used in new one. Those things are going to be sold around the world. So really high-paying jobs throughout. And then in the service industries and supply that help them. The big economic impact, the other big economic impact over here is just the absolute enormity of the problem that they are solving and the market that they will be selling it to. Don't let me lose you here, but there are two types of medicines in the world. One is called small molecule medicines, and the other is large molecule medicines. The technology and the process of manufacturing here, the insights, has to do with small molecule medicines. Small molecule medicines make up 90% of all the medicines that we in the United States take and that people around the world take. Every generic medicine is a small molecule medicine. 2/3 of the drugs approved last year by FDA are small molecule, not large molecule. The two drugs that we're all hanging our hat and hope on, which can be incorporated in pills to fight COVID, not the vaccines, but the actual therapeutics, are both small molecule medicines. In fact, Frank Upton at BC is telling them to re-engineer those small molecules are made right now. But those medicines represent just an enormous market. What the approach that this sector is doing is drastically reducing the cost, reducing the supply chain risk, bringing back the reshoring of the manufacturing of those medicines to the United States, so that, for example, access to healthcare is magnified immensely because we can drive down the cost of the medicines that we take. The generic medicines, the medicines that Medicaid pays for, the medicines that are plans paid for. These medicines can be made far more efficiently and cost effectively, and right now already are the price of the #1 drug being distributed around the world to fight global HIV, distributed by WHO and by USAID and by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. The price of that drug has dropped 30% in the world market because of formulations that were devised at the Medicines for All Institute in BC. That's happening right now. Those are sort of the enormous impacts and the enormous value that can be unlocked by the application of these processes. So it's an eminently tradable sector, to use the language that we use. These drugs are going to be sold all over the world, and a couple in Virginia. And the other thing to say is that as we build up the new manufacturing modalities, going to a continuous process way of manufacturing, rather than the batch way that's been used historically in the pharmaceutical industry, And this is a transformation that FDA has yearned for 30 years and is a staunch backer of our efforts here. So many parts of that machinery, of that instrumentation, of the analytic equipment, of the supply has to be reinvented, have to be adapted from the old way. So there's an entire supply chain that's going to come to this region to help support the pioneer players here. So that's our economic impact.
All right, let's move on to talk about regional collaboration, which is obviously a prime focus for Go Virginia. Could you describe briefly, and Bill, we'll start with you, why you think taking a regional approach makes sense, and if there's any lessons learned or challenged?
Sure. So first off, the first program that I'll talk about, which is the energy project, is truly a regional endeavor. But it's a region within a region. So when I talked earlier about how we're seeing battery plants for vehicles going into Tennessee, we're seeing a rapidly developing new mining industry in Western North Carolina for lithium. We're seeing a demand that probably was totally unforeseen 18 months ago as car manufacturer after car manufacturer announces that they are moving in a major fashion into electrical vehicles. So ADO announced yesterday, 1/3 of their production by 2030 will be EVs. This is going to happen. Well, similarly, the technologies that Doug needs for the generation of that electricity can be served by those same companies. So the region being willing to cooperate and put its assets together for companies that previously could have been considered competitors to be willing to work collaboratively together. That is such a major change in their ability to work for a common good, to work for the common benefit of the region. And that has to be done by people who know each other. So that regional collaboration, which is being supported, out of UVA, out of Charlottesville, out of other Michigan, is exciting to see. And that's at a regional level. When we move to our retooling initiative, we're talking about a national issue, we're talking about a Commonwealth issue, and we're talking about individuals and issues in every hospital, every auto parts supplier, every region of the state. For the state to pull together behind a project that makes sense for the common good, and to be willing to participate at a high level in the promotion, the management, the oversight, and the execution, I believe, quite frankly, is a phenomenal accomplishment. I've got a list in front of me of, executives and managers from Hollingsworth and Bose, Seacam, Centara, Westrock, George Mason, Patriot Industries, Ms. Chomps, Bechtel, Evonik, who are all participating and have come together for the common good.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. We talked a little bit about some of the groundwork that has to be done before you can, develop and really advance a project like this. Consensus building. Could you tell us about the strategies you used? I'm going to start with you, Jeff, because I think your story is interesting. I've heard you tell it a couple of times. How to get everybody together?
Well, first of all, we're doing really well as a region now, but greatness was thrust upon us because the VC was up in Richmond and was thinking manufacturing, so 3 manufacturing sites are down in Petersburg, just by sort of historical accident. So to make this really work, we had to work together. And so we got a great advantage to that. It's these regions had not worked together before, and so we're creating that new. We did do that year-long planning process. It helped us a lot that it was COVID, that people had time on their hands. Heck, we could schedule a Zoom 3 days away and get 40 people on it. And it gave hope, actually, in a time when we thought everything was mired. And so actually one answer is that having a common vision, values that unite you, that's important, and people say, well, that's worth going after. That's an extraordinarily powerful thing. It brings us back together a lot. So that having been said, the difficulties of getting the region to work together and our local economic development units to work together, that it can't be overstated. You know, we faced halfway across the bridge, we faced this, and we come up with a way of looking at it. You know, it's not, we're not scared to open the closet. This is the beast we set out to tame, you know, with Go Virginia. This is it. But it comes up, if not every meeting, every 2 weeks. Okay, let's try this. This is what we need. Well, okay, well, but, you know, okay, let's do a communication from the entire region about the entire industry. And then you go to your communication specialist at your local economic development place, and then we've never written a message for the whole region. You know, we've been told not to do that. So it just, these are the things that come up, but with that certain attitude, okay, well, let's go do it. And as I said, with a great enough prize at the end, and a sense of the people you're helping, you know, people help here in the region as well as around the world. That's the fuel that gets us past those things.
Fantastic. Doug, how about you? I would agree. We're seeing some incredible collaborative efforts and activity in Hampton Roads, right?
Yeah, thank you. In some ways, it was easier for us with offshore wind because it is a new industry. And so what you have is almost friendly competitors. So the folks that have been trying to get involved in this from industry in particular have a shared interest in trying to get this thing stood up. So they have shared information with us, been incredibly forthcoming. Multiple companies were bidding on the Dominion project that was going on, but they were all talking to us about what they would need and how things would need to come out to play in that industry. And several of them they get selected. Those selections have been made, and yet we still have a relationship with them. Still want to land them in our area because they'll in all likelihood get to support other projects. In terms of the regional approach, though, think about this. There's order of magnitude 8,000 parts in one of these wind turbines. So there's plenty of opportunity to go around, not just Hampton Roads and our communities, not just the Commonwealth of Virginia, but you know, one of the things I hope you know is that Secretary of Virginia has an agreement to cooperate with Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina. Right? So when we had the conference up here in Richmond, we did a joint booth with 3 states. We crafted a relationship with this guy, John Harden, down at the Department of Commerce. We were actually involved in 2 of these Build Back Better grants. One came from North Carolina, from the NC State, and we were part of that with something that NC State had written. That would have never happened. We couldn't have made that happen without this kind of opportunity coming our way. So it really is this idea that there's so much to be gained that you can cooperate. And I want to comment, you all approved a grant, I don't know if it was today or last month, for Southwest Virginia. I think the project they're calling is BEER. And one of the things we did in our process is, frankly, you all required us to take a statewide approach to this. We put a statewide offshore wind supply chain committee together, folks like Victor Hoskins from North Virginia and Anthony Romanello from here and Will Payne from down Southwest are on that committee. And it's a way I frankly got to know Will Payne a little bit. We invited him to town for this conference we had where we had a lot of companies and shared all our information with them. But now you all just approved a grant for them to do a study, not unlike what we did, to understand, are there companies out in the coal industry that can pivot into this new industry? Well, it would seem that there should be. And back to a comment earlier about Southwest Virginia, fast forward, we think we are going to be an energy importer. And there's a chance we think Southwest Virginia is going to be an energy exporter. Well, by collaborating with them now, we're going to have the relationships to have that conversation down the road. The other thing you want to approve for us, and we're just starting off, is a regional energy assessment. We don't believe we're going to have adequate energy supply to support the naval, the military installations and the growth in our economic development on our current path. So we've got to understand, what is that demand going to look like? What are the portfolios of solutions going to look like? And how do we bring them to bear? And again, I think that cooperation with another part of the state may well be how we deliver some of those solutions. So I think the regional cooperation was easy on this one, but I think the fun part is going to be taking it beyond Hampton Roads and involvement in the rest of the state.
I really want to thank our panelists. I think you've clearly whetted our appetite about what's important and what we can do to go to Virginia. How exciting. I just would say to you, Jeff, that it warms my heart to have a lawyer schooling us about small molecule and large.
And I read books
Let's
every
go
night.
tell that story. So I'm going to give the board an opportunity to ask any questions if you have any.
Could I make a few comments?
Of course,
Sure.
yeah.
I think microphone.
You speak loudly, so I
All right, I'll
can hear
speak
you. I'm
loudly.
happy to bring it.
I've gotten to work with all three of these folks a lot, and starting with Doug, one of the first speeches I gave when I got into the job that I'm in after I went around the state was I saw that communities that collaborated did well. The flip side of that was communities that did not do well. I went down to Williamsburg to talk to the Hampton Roads folks, and I told them they weren't doing a very good job. They were staff to their speech, and I probably should have been a little more general in what I said, but I have seen the remarkable turnaround, and Doug has been a big part of it. And Doug, you mentioned the agreement we signed to work on offshore wind with Maryland and North Carolina. And I got my own lesson in collaboration, because every instinct in my body when that agreement was put in front of us, why the hell would we sign this thing? Because we know more about this than they do, and I want to get ahead of them. And we were persuaded, no, let's do this. And just recently attended the offshore wind conference that was hosted here in Virginia, and Hampton Roads and Richmond were very involved in that. We had a lot of people from Europe. Well, the Europeans, they're way ahead of us in offshore wind. I mean, they're into their second and third generation wind farms. They're also very skeptical of how committed the United States is to offshore wind. Our previous federal administration wasn't too terribly receptive. And one of the things that I heard repeatedly talking to the European folks that are interested in doing business in Virginia is, thank God you signed that agreement to collaborate with Maryland and North Carolina, because it shows you all can work together, and it was quite, so it paid off dividends almost immediately. I would also remind our folks that the Clean Energy Act that we passed a few years back creates a market for offshore wind, and we as a state, I think, were early movers on that, and I think Hampton Roads and indeed the rest of the state would benefit mightily from that. Just to comment on Jeff's, the thing that's been most heartening to me with the onshoring of pharmaceutical ingredient manufacturing in Petersburg is what it's doing to transform a community that was in dire need of something good to happen. The last good thing had been tobacco, and tobacco was gone. We had some other things. But this is a remarkable. It's just a wonderful thing for the community. And to comment on, we put all three of the projects down there, so we were very excited to be able to bring those along. And then Bill talked about the PPE in the early going. We weren't even talking about making PPE. We were talking about finding people. I called people in this room begging for PPE, and that was our job for weeks, days, certainly weeks. And it's been a real, we've seen in the last couple of years, the pharmaceutical business, we're onshoring that again. So we didn't, I don't think we not have masks and gowns and people on that chair. We didn't have basic medicines to treat people who were sick.
And because we've offshored every bit of that, and I hope we never forget that lesson and it builds operation. Pick and show, we're trying to find folks that wanted to get into the manufacturing business, and it's a tribute to how nimble our enterprise system is, that so many different businesses, large businesses too, could pivot and get into this business. And we just did a large announcement with county to manufacture nitrile and nitrile gloves. And I hope we never get to a situation where we're washing gloves again. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to work through these folks on various projects that are so transformative to various parts of our state for all of us.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. It is remarkable in terms of everything that you've achieved, but I was wondering if perhaps I missed it in terms of what does it look like relative to the jobs that have been created? I don't think that I heard it, but what's the makeup of those persons that would occupy those positions? So could you speak to that? Any one of you? You probably have a capability. I know you do.
So in the retooling area, so the types of jobs that are being filled include engineering jobs. They include marketing and sales jobs. They include distribution jobs and manufacturing jobs. And the work that we help them do is we help them determine whether it makes sense to go into business. We call them commercialized. You're probably familiar that a lot of PPE has an emergency use authorization. We're helping people get permanent FDA certification so that masks they make, they will be able to make once we get through this pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but I was really trying to figure out how many minorities might be fulfilling those positions, how many of the individuals that are in positions have transferred from other disciplines. That's what I was really trying to get at.
And we are in the process, we actually utilize a survey from our federal procurement NIST to be able to ascertain that information. And I would be glad to bring that information back forward to you. Once those surveys begin to come in, they generally start about a year after we complete working with a client. Be glad to. I don't have that information for you today, ma'am.
Thank you.
Marilyn, I just wanted to comment on the wind part of this panel, that in the Clean Virginia Economy Act is a requirement for the jobs to come from impoverished neighborhoods, low-income workers to be trained as part of the wind project. So in that project, that's kind of covered by some requirements that will be put into play very soon.
Well, that's good to hear, because I do think it's an important consideration that we address that as we create jobs.
So a couple comments real quick. So one of the things we did this past year, we actually hired a young man to do advocacy for us, and literally was going out to social clubs, churches, Rotary clubs, just trying to tell the story. Part of this is helping folks understand what these jobs are and what's coming their way. So that study that I mentioned did a job taxonomy that showed, so a lot of the jobs right now are people out at vessels doing survey work, right? But Brian and his team just landed a blade facility at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. It's going to have 200 people doing trade skills, in addition to ILA members that are going to be moving these blades that are longer than this room around and trying to get them out to that vessel. So that's, I think, around 200 jobs that we've already announced.
At least that, yeah.
And then as I mentioned, Dominion will have order of magnitude about 900 on that piece. One of the things that we need to do is, we haven't gotten this funded yet, but we want to bring on the Hampton Workforce Council wants to hire 30 community navigators to go into traditionally underserved communities, make them first aware that these jobs are going to be available, but then provide the wraparound services of childcare and transportation, those sorts of things, to get them that training, to get them the opportunity to get these jobs. I will say now publicly, we're recording a European company, we've got this fantastic workforce, right? Well, the reality is that fantastic workforce is building ships and submarines and roads, and we need more bodies to stand up this industry, and we think that it creates a tremendous opportunity for folks.
Thank you. Are there questions or comments? Madam Secretary?
Madam Chair, for my first and probably last meeting, really grateful to be here, but wanted to say thank you to these three for reminding us of the important connection between the best state for business and the best educated state. And they talked about reasons why that is so important. I think in this West Point, neither of those things are successful if not all Virginians are participating in that. So thank you all for reminding us of the connection between our education system and our successful business.
Thank you. Debbie?
Yeah, a couple things. One thing on Daryl, some of us in urban areas have figured out we don't have a healthy workforce. And particularly with minorities, which are enormously disadvantaged in terms of healthcare in urban areas. They don't get qualified and even considered to get jobs. So one of the predicates, both Hampton Roads and Richmond are considered public health schools, to start dealing with the statistics and making more and more people eligible and qualified with skills to get the jobs. And so it's something doesn't intuitively jump out at you that healthcare like that is so important. It is. The second thing I just want to say to you, we were coming up with Go Virginia at the very beginning. We went over to the old EDA. I don't think the person who was not Steve Roy, who we all think very highly of. And we asked this person, we were still thinking about the legislation. We said, do you think we ought to be part of the EDP? He said, absolutely not. You guys do, all we do is business attraction. Anybody knows anything about economic development? That's what states did 10 and 20 years ago. What you just heard today is the new economic development model. 3 examples of them. In terms of you can have growth engines that really will move you. Business attraction is 15% of total recruitment. Even when you read about big automotive, aerospace, and all that stuff, they're important, and we need them. We don't have any sites, we'll get sites. But my point is, this state has really changed. And I think we've had a lot to do. When you heard all of their collaboration, that's critical. Independent cities and counties makes that hard to do, but it's happened with incentives. You all created a great program to get it done. And it's extended to so many other areas. I've had my friends out in the western part of the state say if they hadn't had Go Virginia, they wouldn't have gotten together with 81. I mean, yeah, and there's so many examples. Like you heard about the transportation thing in Hampton Roads. Same thing happened in Northern Virginia. They had to come together. So this is overcoming a lot of impediments that are structural. But you all, and I know all 3 of these guys, are great leaders, great projects. That makes a huge difference. With subject area expertise, that makes a huge difference. Not just looking at us as a Christmas tree that has money that we want to give. They are right in our wheelhouse. And so I just want to emphasize this new economic development, which is going to strengthen the state and every fundamental. And this is not part of the solution. The beauty of what we're working on, bylaws. I think that's important.
Thank you, Debbie. Absolutely agree. So, and thanks to our panelists, really great work. We can't wait to hear what's next. Sarah, what else is leaving? How about giving us a sort of an overview of what we've accomplished this past year? And I should tell the board that the annual report is completed and has been submitted to legislative services. So can you give us a brief report?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you very much. I'm going to talk to you about just some highlights from the Go Virginia annual report, which has been submitted as required, and it really covers the actions and activities of this body. And I wanted to bring your attention to some key projects. And I'm going to close with just a little bit of analysis and charts that talk about the program and what it's accomplished really since inception.
Joseph, do you have PowerPoint?
Thank you.
Okay.
So just to kind of put you in the Wayback Machine, what have we done over the past fiscal year? And I'm really talking about the period that ended June 30th of this year. A couple of things this board made some determinations on. And the first thing was to extend and enhance the funding available for economic resilience and recovery. And I'd just like to pause here for a second to talk about how significant that has been. Prior to this meeting, Go Virginia funded its 200th project. So congratulations on that milestone, but we have deployed almost $10 million in economic resilience and recovery funds very early in. And last year, the board made a decision to allow regional councils to apply an additional $500,000 of their regular per capita allocation for projects that would meet that criteria. There was also a decision made about modified match, and I'm going to show you a little bit about grant volume and the amount of money we were able to successfully move last year, because I think it contributed greatly. But we've changed the match requirements, made that a 2-to-1 match. And in fact, $1 raised at the local level would be matched with a $2 investment from the state. And we eliminated the local match requirement out of consideration for fiscal and economic distress which being felt across the Commonwealth. We also took action to amend the sites policy to allow state investments protected in privately owned sites. There were a number of Go Virginia activities that I think were really right at the nexus with a lot of other important conversations going on at the state. There were a number of sites and infrastructure forums, and that was in partnership with BDP. The site characterization report was completed, and the effort there was to bring that information to the regional councils so that they can make data-driven decisions about those investments. All of the Go Virginia regions participated as hosts for a stop in the virtual blueprint tour. And that was really exciting. I hope some of you had an opportunity to participate, but the regional council chairs gave statements, contributed greatly to the development of the blueprint plan that was presented just a couple Fridays ago at the Virginia Chamber. And we really saw an exciting new integration with some work happening at Chev, specifically this regional internship initiative. Building on some early investments made by Go Virginia, Chev is now providing grant funding to sustain collaboratives to support internship, really to help consolidate and simplify engagement with business and industry by multiple educational institutions, and really to create a body, a person every day who's waking up thinking about these types of student experiences and how they can help us build a better qualified workforce. And Chev is using Go Virginia regions, of course, as the construct for those investments. These are some highlights from 2021. 68 projects, 31 million in grants, and 35 million in leverage match. Now that was even in an environment with a 2-to-1 match requirement. So you can see that our partners stepped up greatly to participate in these projects. There were also 6 statewide competitive projects, which I think is the most ever for this program. And just really, again, demonstrates the inter-regional collaboration that we're seeing as the program matures. This is a snapshot of what's happened in each region, and happy to answer any questions about that. This is the portfolio of investments made in fiscal year 21, about 42% in workforce development, 23% in site development. You can read the chart here. But a very diversified queue of investments. I will just tell you, we saw some significant increases in the cluster scale-up category as a number of regions really spun up efforts to help existing businesses in response to the economic hardships brought forward by the pandemic. And then also in sites. And remember, Go Virginia had taken a little bit of a hiatus on sites. That door opened again, and we saw a lot of regional collaboration and some pretty significant sites projects. All of the 68 were fantastic projects. Obviously, they're approved by you or administratively approved by the DHCD staff. But I want to just spotlight one from each region that we think are exemplary, and really, with your permission, I'd just like to move through them very quickly. Very quickly. One you heard from, Gen Ed. I'm not going to talk about that a lot. This is a project we see as a potential game changer. How we move a carbon-based economy into this new energy economy, we think is really exciting. In Region 2, this was an ERR project. We think this is a exceptional effort. The New River Valley Regional Commission actually partnership with their economic development organizations and their health districts to provide technical assistance and services to businesses, a customer group they have not previously served, to make sure that they were capable to continue their operations during the pandemic, especially when they were impacted by an exposure or infection in their facilities. This project is the SOBA Innovation Hub.
This is an extension of the REI, the Regional Entrepreneurship Initiative in Region 3. We think this is going to be a game changer for Region 3, changing the culture around entrepreneurship, really at its core, and building out, I think, an amazing network of services and products to help encourage new business formation and support high potential businesses in the region. The next one is the Virginia State University Small Business Launch Center. This project was in Region 4. Again, we think this is an exceptional example of collaboration. If you guys are not familiar, Virginia State has launched the center and a website and are producing content and are training entrepreneurs and engaging their alumni and so many partners. There's a dashboard already that's talking about the results that are being produced. We've had some conversations as well with the city of Petersburg and a number of other partners about how we can create some more energy around this adjacent. The next one is in Region 5. This was our first sites project and one that staff especially appreciates because of the data-driven approach that they use. Highly collaborative. These are difficult decisions to have when a region has a number of sites, but they may not all be regionally significant. And we think Hampton Roads did just an incredible job of sitting their partners down and having those difficult conversations and making what we think are a really smart set of investments of $663,000. The next one is the Medicor program. This is in Go Virginia Region 7 in Northern Virginia. George Washington University, which you immediately think they're not even in Virginia. They do have a very significant health science campus in Northern Virginia. They are actually creating a new mobile lab and some curriculum to be used by multiple high schools and middle schools in the area to increase exposure and really bring cutting edge training laboratory to high schools, many of whom could not traditionally afford, nor should they, quite frankly. So this is a really exciting project. In Region 8, I'll just draw attention to another sites project. They're advancing 6 sites totaling 1,100 acres to a higher level of site readiness. This project, again, Shenandoah Valley, Region 8, is a very large region, as Robin will attest. It's a very long region, which makes sometimes communication and collaboration north to south difficult to achieve. The Shenandoah Valley Partnership, I think, did an amazing job bringing their partners together. They used a quality set of data and criteria to identify high potential, regionally significant sites. And in fact, after this application was approved, they had to do a little bit of a switch out because 2 of the sites had already been drawn down by a user. And the last one, Go Virginia Region 9. Venture Central, this is the Chamber of Commerce. This too is just to give you an example of the diversity of applicants. They are really trying to bring more of a center point and play a coordinating role, connecting entrepreneurs and small business owners to the resources that are available in the region. 2 statewide competitive projects were funded this year that I think are exemplars. Virginia BioConnect, really creating 5 hubs. Regions 2, 4, 5, 7, and 9 collaborated on this project. The other one I'd like to mention is the Virginia Small Business Development Center recovery efforts. This is a $1 million grant. This is, I believe, the only project that we have received unanimous support from all 9 regions. The good news is, while we initially thought that they may need these resources to ensure that they could draw down the maximum federal grant, the local governments and hosts for these centers have stepped up. We've since amended the contract to actually allow them to extend additional services and support more companies through the pandemic and the recovery. Since program inception, 185 project awards. Since June 30th and today, prior to your meeting, there were another 15, which gets us to 200. But as of June 30th of this year, 76.1 million awarded and 81.1 million in committed match. This is what the portfolio looks like since inception. All right, we're about 50%, 51% in talent development. Site development infrastructure is about 16% of our portfolio, 17% in startup ecosystem, and 16% in cluster scale up. I will tell you, and only because I was tracking Go Virginia very early before I joined DHCD even, The workforce numbers come down considerably. In the early days, it was probably about 75% of your total portfolio in terms of resources deployed. The question for you is, what's it going to look like next year, right? In terms of impact, these are the things I wanted to share with you. Regional collaboration. We have now reported 185 different political subdivisions or body politic that have got involved in one or more Go Virginia projects, okay? It includes 131 localities, more than 30 school divisions, and 17 plus regional economic development organizations. So this, in our review, I think has been a highly successful effort to drive those types of collaborative projects. Committed outcomes for those who've received grant awards. You can read the numbers here, but exciting, 24,000 high-wage jobs created, apprenticeship opportunities, credentialed workers, internships, which has been a focus, the number of businesses served. And this is just during the project period, which is usually 2 to 3 years. All of these investments are building new capacity that, because they were chosen, suggest that they will be sustained beyond the line, which is really exciting. We've helped to advance more than 5,600 acres along the tiering system for the Business Ready Sites program, created 837 businesses, and formed 5 regional industrial facility authorities, which again are those collaborative economic development, site development projects. This, I think, is pretty exciting. This is time series 18, 19, 20, 21, to just give you a sense of the volume of activity. You can see year one, there were 27 projects, about 6.3 million. Last year, ending June 30th, we had 68 funded projects and deployed about $31 million. This year, our FY22 appropriation is $30.9 million. Okay, so this is definitely an exciting trend and one to watch. With the projects that you approved today and the ones that you did at the September meeting, I think we'll be tracking in the $28 to $35 million in terms of projects. At the regional level, these are trends. I'm always looking for uptake, right? Regions across the bottom, 1, 2, 3, etc. You can see region 1 in program year 18, $250,000, in 21, $2.4 million, right? And again, this is just an indication, I think, of the program's maturity. I actually split out the statewide competitive projects because I do want to draw attention. $9.3 million in statewide competitive projects. I believe for FY21, we had about $10 million available for statewide competitive projects. And that just gives you a sense of our kind of obligation rate at this time. I'm happy to answer any questions about that, and the rest of the packet is just information.
Great, thank you so
Yeah.
much. I think if you sat through this meeting today, and thank you all for taking your time and attention, and don't go away excited about what we've accomplished, and feeling really proud of yourself and something's wrong with this. It was a fantastic meeting and lots of things are going on as a result. Yes, sir.
Just a very brief comment, just to pick up a little bit on what Debbie said. As you know, the state chamber just released its blueprint 2030, and the fact that they basically based their hearing on teaming with the Go Virginia regions was a tremendous opportunity for people around the state to hear about all the wonderful things that Go Virginia is doing, because our leadership from the various regions participated in each one of those hearings and a chance to share some of the information about some of the projects and promote collaboration. And one of the other offshoots of W was that there's a lot of good language in the blueprint about site selection issues. I know it's near and dear to your heart. So the word is getting out there about Go Virginia, and we feel I think more people are recognizing it is a great, great entity that we should be very proud of. And just for the point of record, back to the comment about the George Washington University, just to let you know that George Washington's actually been in Virginia since the 1950s. They've got a 110-acre campus in Northern Virginia, nursing school based there, and 45,000 graduates in the Commonwealth of Virginia taxpayers.
There you go. There you go. I think we've heard a lot of interesting things about what we have done. There are many more things going forward, and we've heard some notions today such as the connectivity, not just the ones that panelists have given us, but Senator Howe suggesting some connectivity to other resources. Thank you, Ms. Schneider, for being here. Thank you for describing the nexus between education and economics. We clearly know how important that is. I wanted to also share with you that there is a lot of overlap, or at least adjacencies with the VEDP, and the chair of the VEDP, Sarah, Eric, and I have been talking together with their staff about what can we do together to enhance what we're doing, and in particular in site development. So lots of good things have happened and are happening. And I think Ms. West, your suggestion that we be sure to look at what we said we were all about, and that is good jobs for everyone, and being sure that a diverse workforce is clearly where we're going to center. I'm going to ask Debbie to talk just for a few minutes, if you don't mind, Debbie, about the foundation and where we're going, what to look forward to.
So the Go Virginia Foundation, which most of you all are familiar with, are the business organizations that put up with $5 million over the last 7 or 8 years to get Go Virginia adopted and create familiarity across the state with our legislatures, the regions, to popularize the concept that is the basis of this, which is collaboration to get better results. 1 and 1 is 3. So I chair that group, and there are 20 members. I think a lot of us on this board who business have been doing that for a long time. So we have been working about what's the next iteration. We've sort of regarded our role as thought leadership, and we retain consultants to help us think about the next piece. Well, you heard one thing just a second ago. What is the new economic development model that we ought to be pursuing? Because we haven't really been doing it very well in Virginia. For the record, it's a lot of opportunity, and we're starting to go at it. One thing that we are particularly working on, we started working on this some time ago with some encouragement from the existing administration, and now the incoming administration is equally interested in this. Talent and scaling up clusters. Each region has a lot of stuff they can do. But if you've got a couple of clusters and they really differentiate you and they're long-term sustainable, you can't do everything, you better be sure those clusters are strong. And that has not been happening across the state of Virginia. It is happening more and more. You heard a little bit cluster scale up. That's always been one of our legs of our stool. So the new administration coming in is very interested in getting some pilots going quickly in several of our regions to validate that we have the ability to meet some cluster needs in finding people. No easy task these days, by the way. I mean, this over the last 2 years has been crazy to me. We don't have people, enough people, then we have too many people, and then we don't have enough people. And a lot of creativity, including a lot of recruitment efforts, that are going to have to go into making that work. But we want to pilot early in a couple of regions and validate that we can do this initiative that would then allow us to go to business higher ed councils also proposed. There is no, they proposed $350 million for internships. There is no detail behind that. We're going to have to fill it in the details based on our regional experiences and what everybody's telling us. What does an internship cost in your community? How do we bring the CTE into this early? Because you're going to hear more and more CTE has got a big place in this. And those are jobs that people with 4-year degrees can earn long-term livelihoods that are above the median income in the state. And that's a sensational thing. So we're going to do that. We're working on it. Spend a fair amount of money with consultants, looking at best practices across the country. And you're going to get in March the updated strategic plans from each of the regions. You will see then probably a little uneven report on cluster analysis. Some will be really good, some will be there, but not as deep. We may want to do another foundation grant to allow regions to do a deeper dive on some of their clusters, really understand with businesses in those clusters, what are their gaps, specific jobs they need. And then what we're going to do, and this is novel, and Hampton Roads, we've got to agree to it. higher ed is not collaborative. They're as siloed as our localities. And I've been behind higher ed forever, but it's got to change. I mean, we're spending too much money in this state on creating everything duplicated all over everywhere. We don't need 23 different versions of a credential. We need one superb thing that can be done everywhere. So we're going to try and get collaborations to start each of the regions against those credentials that are needed in those clusters. And as those higher eds participate, much like Tech Talent Program, they'll get paid for the results they contribute that result in jobs. As opposed to just give me the money and we'll produce what we can. It sounds like I'm not in favor of higher ed. 24 years of higher ed boards, believe me, I'm very much in favor of it. But for public boards, they have to pivot. They have to be more involved in our state economy, more involved with the research that's going on in our state to take care of the companies we have in our state. And we haven't been doing that. So you'll be hearing a lot more about this. I just wanted you to know that it's not ready for prime time, but starting probably in March, I think they'll be ready to come back. Nancy's working on this, Todd's working on it, Haywood's working on it, Tim's working on it, several of us are working on it. We bring it back to you and see how you feel about it. Yeah, so I just wanted to have a heads up that there is stuff going on in that space that will take us to the next level of impact. And I think it's important.
Amen.
Yes.
Leah.
Chairman, Dr. Gass, just a clarifying question. So this is really exciting, but we are naturally a bureaucratic organization running through a state agency. So these pilots and stuff, are we going to flex or figure out ways to get around, or is this the red tape that is important and part of this process? Or will this run through the foundation and kind of be a private sector?
We're going to crank these pilots outside of the building. And then they'll come back with results. We're not going to wait. I mean, we went through these 6 months before we saw it. Anyway, we're going to start this in the first quarter for the willing regions. And we're talking now about a couple of regions. Hopefully we want to participate in it. And what we're trying to do, like any business, you want to validate before you scale, right? So we need to prove that we've got good ideas and that this stuff works. So that's the intent, not to wait.
Good. Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Just to follow up on Debbie's comments, I think I agree with not necessarily all of them, some of them, and one I agree with him 100% on is in the 4 years I've been in this job, with failure of higher ed to work together, which has been one of the most disappointing things to observe. And Fran, don't shoot me, but it's been tough.
I can't reach that far, Brian.
Okay. You can't hear that much. I'd say mildly disillusioned, and in particular, how do we address our workforce needs? That's been one that's gotten our attention. And I do want to point out that our General Assembly appropriated money to stand up an operation over at the Virginia Economic Development Partnership to look at this very issue in terms of what does higher ed need to do to produce the workforce that Virginia needs to keep moving forward economically. I can't remember the exact budget amount, but I think you all appropriated it. Okay. In this previously appropriated, but it's doing its work and it will be reporting, and that will be relevant to the conversations that you all will continue to have on this board.
The EDP has also created a database to start tracking these clusters so that we can actually
They've been
see
doing
that.
that, though. That's not it.
Well, you just got a $500,000 grant to just fill out a DCO with people, right?
And the Virginia Business Higher Ed Council's been concerned about this too, and talking to the presidents, who at least say they want.
Get them in a loop. I think I can talk to you about some of this stuff. Knock some heads together, have some incentives, have some accountability, and let them know that if they don't produce, then we'll have to move in a different direction. So we'll have that separate.
So thank you. And a lot of these candid conversations, that shows a level of maturity that this organization's come to as well. So thank you. I want to thank the administration and the legislature for their support from the outset of Go Virginia, but particularly in last year. I think you can see the maturity of Go Virginia, and what we're accomplishing is meaningful. There are a few people that probably won't be with us again, and I particularly want to thank them for their service to the Commonwealth, to the Go Virginia State Board, and that's our Secretary of Commerce and Trade, Brian Bell,
Jim Flores isn't here. I think he's kind of busy with the governor's budget at the moment, but Secretary of Finance Joe Flores. And I'll also comment on Aubrey Lane, who was a real force and very involved. And Fran, we want to thank you, Secretary of Education. You've been a meaningful part of this meeting, and we're sorry that you may not be with us again. All of you all, your leadership and your guidance has been enormously important, and we've been privileged to have you as a part of this group, so thank you. I also want to thank the staff. It's apparent to you, I hope, the tremendous amount of work that Eric and Sarah in particular, as well as the rest of the staff do. This is a machine, and it works very, very hard. And we trade calls early in the morning and late at night sometimes. But I want to really thank you all for what you do. Very much appreciate it. So let's get those started. Next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March the 15th. It's possible the General Assembly won't be finished by then, so we may have to pivot. We'll be taking a look at that, and if we need to change our date, we'll let you know. Wishing you all a happy holiday and a joyous new year, and we will see you next year.
Happy holidays.